Okay. Hello everyone. We are from Seven Group. Now we would like to presentation, and our topic today is about multimodal discourse analysis. But before that, let me introduce the members of this group. So the first is me. I am Grace Patricia Sibuan. My student number is A1B2199092. And my partners are Shakila Febrian Syaputri, A1B2191008. And the last one is Violeta Ameliana Fernanda, PMM 2100211. So the first material is about definition of multimodal discourse analysis, and it will be presented by me. So multimodal discourse analysis is a new study in discourse studies to study text combined with images, colors, symbols, and semiotic resources. This study concludes that in the use of colors, images, and text contain a certain meaning that the reader can interpret in accordance with the reality and presented in the text or narration. So in fact, many readings of text are constructed not just by use of words, but of course by other combination that called multimodalities such as pictures, film, video, images, and sounds. The ways in which people reacted to, for example, the event of the 11th September, they were very much affected by the images they saw on television as they were by verbal reports of the events. The writers of the report, they use multimodal features and multimodal discourse. According to Machin and Kress 2010, they mentioned that multimodal features or multimodal discourse establish proximity. Next slide, please. The use of multimodal discourse both establishes proximity to the events and engage people in the events. It compresses distance and brings images and experiences into people's homes. So the meaning of proximity here is they try to give images and pictures to let the listeners to feel as if they are or they were in the same field of the action. So the street shots from Manhattan taken to exemplify or to reflect the idea of 11 September help to create proximity and involvement with the events. They compress distance, make it very close as if the listener is there. This moved the viewer from a position of spectator to a witness of the event. So, for example, the use of footage to accompany the airports, but the viewer fly there and the scene of the suffering as the events were unfolding, and the viewers were both there powerless to act. Next slide, please. The multimodal use of discourse is as much a feature of print genres as it is of television genres. For example, the presentation of women in magazines relies not just on words on the pages, but as much on the image that are accompany the words. Machin and Thornborough argue that print genres such as magazines are not just selling magazines to the readers, it's also about selling values of independence, power, and fun. Next slide, please. Background to multimodal discourse analysis. Much of the work in multimodal discourse draws from Halliday's social semiotics approach to language, a view that considers language as one among a number of semiotic resources that people use to communicate or to make meaning with each other. Halliday's 2009 describes three types of social meanings or functions that are drawn on simultaneously in the use of language. The first is ideational, and then interpersonal, and the last is textual meaning. Multimodal discourse analysis, much of the work in multimodal discourse analysis draws actually and taken from Halliday's 1978 and 1989, a social semiotic approach to language. A view considers language only as one among a number of semiotic resources. What are these other resources? They are gesture, images, and music that people use to communicate or to make meaning with each other. So language, according to this view, can't be considered in isolation from meaning, but needs to be considered within the socio-cultural context in which it occurs. So multimodal discourse analysis thus aims to destroy the socially situated semiotic resources that we draw on for communication. Halliday's actually 2009 says something. He says multimodal considers how text-drawn modes of communication, such as picture, film, video, images, and sound in combination with words to make meaning. It has examined print journalists as well, such as web pages, so television programs. It considers how multimodal texts are designed and how some tools, such as color priming, focus on positioning of elements contribute to the making of meaning and these types. And this way, Halliday describes three types of social meanings and functions that are drawn on simultaneously in the use of language. There are the first ideational means what is text about, and then interpersonal means the relation between participants, and the third is textual meaning means how the message is organized. Next slide, please. So this is the examples of multimodal discourse analysis. We can look at the screen. So there is a magazine. Its name is the Time magazine. Carry the picture of Michelle Obama with accompanying text as you see there are small words. Above the picture, very big word written in red, the title of the magazine, and below the face there is the meaning of Michelle Obama. This image of Michelle Obama situated as you see in the photo. Here situated at the camera. She looks straight at the camera, establishes eye contact with the readers. Then her face occupies the whole page, providing closeness, and the shot is horizontal, that suggesting the readers is on the same level as the subject of the image. So we can look at the layout, and the placement of the image is also significant in that they each convey a certain information values well as communicate salience of the message of the readers. So centrally framed with the text showing how they belong together, the meaning of Michelle Obama. So I think that's all from me. Uh, the next material will be presented by Shakila Febriansyah Putri. So for Shakila, time is yours.
Thank you, moderator. Well, the next material is about genre, speech act, and multimodality. Van Leeuwen discusses speech acts and genre in relation to multimodality, using these two notions to capture the how versus the what of multimodal communication. A key point he draws from speech act theory is how a speech act is both an illocutionary act, or what the speech act is aiming to do, and a perlocutionary, a perlocutionary act, or the effect it has on the thoughts and actions of people. An advertisement this may aim to persuade a person to buy a particular product, or the illocutionary act. If the person is convinced by the advertisement and buys the product, this is the effect or perlocutionary force of the advertisement. Uh, Facts just draw on a range of multimodalities to create a perlocutionary effect. It is not just the words of the advertisement that persuade a person by the product. It is through the use of linguistic and visual resources in combination with other non-linguistic and contextual factors that this occurs. Van Leeuwen discusses how genres provide resources or templates for doing things. The genre of surface encounters, for example, and its accompanying stage provide a conventionalized way of getting things done, in this case, buying something in a particular culture. Part of this will or may be done through language as well as through actions such as handing goods and a credit card to a salesperson. With the case of other genres, such as taking money from an automatic teller machine, the verbal components of the interaction may be written and accompanied by visual components such as an image of how to insert the card and which buttons to press to complete the event. Next slide, please. Okay. Um, An advertisement may aim to persuade a person to buy a particular product. It is the illocutionary act. And if the person is convinced by the advertisement and buys the product, this is the effect or the perlocutionary act. Messin and Van Leeuwen 2007 discuss gender and multimodality in relation to global media discourse, taking the example of advertisement in a cosmopolitan magazine. They show how their representations aim to create a certain perlocutionary effect on readers, that is, to use or purchase a particular service or product. Using the example of an advertisement for a health diet clinic, they show how the advertisement employs a problem solution rhetorical structure to do this. The problem presented in the advertisement is skin problems. So the solutions are in the diet clinic's guidance and advice and the purchasing a particular product, the diet clinic's skincare system. The problems are expressed by use of strategies such as an image of blemished skin with accompanying text such as, "Do you suffer from skin problems?" The solution is a picture of the product for sale. The result is a picture of unblemished skin, both words and images. Those interact in the advertisement to contract their particular message. Bateman, 2008, discusses gender in relation to reader's intent. genre, saying that nowadays text is one stain in a complex presentational form that seamlessly incorporates visual aspects around and sometimes even instead of the text itself. He proposes a genre and multimodality framework that provides several layers of description for multimodal text. These are constructure of the information to be communicated, including propositional context, and then genre structure, the individual stage or process defined for a given genre, how the delivery of the contents proceed through particular stage of activity, and then rhetorical structure, the rhetorical relationships between the content elements, how the content is divided into main material and supporting material, and structure rhetorically, and then linguistic structure. The linguistic details of any verbal elements that are used to release the layout elements of the page or document. And layout structure, the nature, appearance, and position of communicative elements on the page and their hierarchical interrelationships. And the last, navigation structure, the ways in which the intended mode of consumption of the document is or are supported. This includes all elements on a page that serve to direct or assist the reader's consumption of the document. Next slide, please. Okay. Uh, the next material is multimodality and newspaper genre. Cable 2009, 2010, and Knox 2007, 2010 discuss newspaper genres from a multimodal perspective and how new technologies are leading to evolution in these genres. Keppel gives the example of image nuclear news story, that is stories which compress the photograph and a headline and or a short caption. Knox discusses news bites, online newspaper text which comprise a headline and an image with a hyperlink to full story. Image nuclear news stories, in contrast with news bites, are independent texts in themselves and do not point to a fuller story elsewhere in the newspaper. Newspaper often draw on the strength of visual image in image nuclear news stories to capture and relate in, the interest of their readers. In the majority of the text, Keppel collected she found the headings that accompanied the image were an idiomatic expression that fit with the subject matter of the photograph. The news bite is one of the central elements on this page. News bites are often single sentence news stories with a link to a fuller story. The function of news bite is to highlight the most important stories of the day in the newspaper's view, and to indicate the level of importance of this story as illustrated by the size of the text, its positioning on the page, the font and size of the headline, and the color and size of an image, if there is one on the page. Knox 2007 identifies three key elements to the genre of news bites. It's the headline, uh, the lead, or typically the first sentence of the fuller text, and the link to complete text. Sometimes the link is indicated by the word full report. Often also the link is a hyperlink from the headline or an illustration that accompanies the text. The stance of the newspaper and its relationship with its readers are reflected in the presentation of the homepage and the news bites that are placed on it. I think that's all from me. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Shakila, for your great explanation. So the last material will be presented by Violeta Emiliana. So for Violeta, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the moderator. I will explain about multimodal and film trailers. The implicitly promotional. So there are two promotional in multimodal and film trailers. The first is implicitly promotional. It relates to information that is the part of the story of the film. It can code as a diegetic information, and then the second is explicitly promotional. They often mix together information about the story of the film or movie and information that is not a part of the story of the film. It can code as a non-diegetic information, such as voiceover commentaries, evaluation, and recommendation. So, um, not all film trailers have all these stages, but most seem to contain a combination of them. Some Mayer shows how the modes of voice, music, images, and text all contributed to the goal or the function of each section of a trailer. The fragments of the film that are presented in the trailer and the voiceovers commentaries on them, those combine to create the overall goal of the trailer to promote the film. So there are stages of the comedy film trailers and the functions about the multimodality and film trailers. Uh, the stages in implicitly promotional, there are four stages. The first is prologue. I'm so sorry. Prologue, orientation, complication, and evaluation. The function of the prologue is appetizer. And the function of orientation is contextualization, and the complication is introduction to this disruptive action, and then the last is evaluation. That function is interpretation of events or outcomes. And then we go to the next slide. About the limitation of multimodal discourse analysis. The amount of time it takes to do this kind of analysis. The analysis at some stages can be quite technical. It can also be very interpretative. The multimodal analysis less often looks at readers or viewers' reading of text, and less attention is given to the aspects of language. And the last is the issue of how the analysis can be linked to wider social issues. So IDEMA Trend 2001 discusses limitation of multimodal discourse analysis. Among these is the amount of time it takes to do this kind of analysis. Also, he points out while the analysis may at some stages be quite technical, it can also, like all discourse analysis, be very interpretative. And multimodal analysis also less often looks at readers or viewer reading of text. And McHow in 1991, for example, has pointed out that analysis readings are not always the same as actual readings of text. Multimodal text footer are often examined on the basis of the final product alone and are not considered in relation to the people who were involved in its creation. So the further limitations are tied up in the aims and scope of multimodal discourse analysis. While multimodal analysis pay attention to features of communication that are often left out of other approaches to discourse analysis. There is sometimes less attention given to aspects of language that approaches to discourse analysis might consider. There is also the issue of how the analysis can be linked to wider social issues. And this can, however, be dealt with by linking the analysis to wider social theories, such as in the work of Machine and Lewin, 2007, who connect multimodal analysis to discussion of global media communication and the theories that inform that work. So, and then the use of ethnographic data to provide insights into the context of production and consumption of the text can also be extremely useful for linking multimodal discourse analysis to broader social and contextual issues. It can be explained with me about the multimodal and film trailers and the limitation of multimodal discourse analysis. In the next slide, we'll explain it again with moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your great explanation, Phil. So before I close this presentation, let me conclude the materials. Multimodal discourse analysis is an approach that looks at multiple modes of communication, such as text, color, and images. It is a method of discursive analysis that looks at not just how individual modes communicate, but how they interact with one another to create semiotic meaning. Multimodality also applies in images, children's books, match, television advertisement, and so forth. The multimodal use in discourse is as much a feature of print genres as it is of television genre. Uh, I think that's all from my group. I hope you understand these materials and see you in Q&A session next meeting. And now I close this presentation. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day. Bye.